Talent-wise, this team is easily in the top 5 in the AFC. They improved the wide receiver. I think they improved. Their defense is improved. They're definitely going to be coordinated better defensively with Jim Schwartz there. But, Zach, when you start with Cleveland, it all starts with Deshaun Watson, and I have no idea what we're getting out of him. What do you think with just seeing the OTAs and then going into training camp? What do you think the reasonable expectations for Deshaun Watson are going into this 2023 campaign?
Well, I think reasonable expectations have to be high, based on what they paid for him. I think they should be high, certainly higher than last year. Guys, the way I feel kind of matches when I've asked people who evaluate, who've been around. He's going to be better. And he's probably going to be a lot better. Now, is he going to be great? And can he reach that early in the year for this monster first half of the schedule? How close to great does he need to be? All of those things, we'll see. But it was an impossible situation last year, as obviously much of it to his own doing. The Browns were pretty much sunk long before he was ever, even allowed back in the building. The way they lost those AFC games early. And then you had a guy who hadn't played in 2 years, had never been in the huddle with these guys, had never worked with the coach. So, they obviously prioritized upgrading his wide receiver group. I think he and Kevin Stefanski had a lot of time to say, this is what I was completely comfortable with. This is what I didn't like. This is what we want it to look like now that we have Elijah Moore, now that we have Amari Cooper healthy, because he wasn't last December. So he's going to be better. And the Browns are going to be better. I can't say he's going to be excellent, but I think it's going to be a wild ride. And I think the offense, though, will give them a chance. And obviously that's why they went and got Jim Schwartz, why they went and got Zadarius Smith. Because the way they view it is they're going to score a bunch more points, and then they're going to turn that pass rush loose and try to close games the way they just haven't been able to so many times in the last couple of years.
Zach, I feel like the Browns are an afterthought in the AFC. You've got Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore, the Dolphins, the Jets. But, Deshaun Watson, the kind of contract he was given and brought in the situation with this team from a talent standpoint, don't you feel somewhat that this is a team that could be a real surprise if people are looking at a long shot? Right now, just to win the AFC, they're 22-1.
Yeah, I would be stunned if they won the AFC.
Sure.
But when you look at the talent, when you look at what they've paid, not just Watson, but this entire roster, this is a top-heavy roster. This is a huge commitment, by far the most cash of any roster in the league. They are a year or so away from major cap decisions, and obviously those will be easier if the quarterback's playing well and guys are performing to those numbers that they have. But yeah, they could be that. Nick Chubb and Myles Garrett should have played in a lot more than 2 playoff games in their careers, right? Joel Bitonio, he might be a Hall of Famer at guard, and they've invested heavily in that offensive line. There's some holes, there's some questions with the roster. But yeah, this is a team that I would agree with you. On paper, just by looking at the talent, is really good, stacks up with almost anybody. And their glimpses of good over the last couple of years, are very good. And it's just crashed down in December. And then I think last year, they punted on the year, let's just be honest. But then It got really sloppy early, and they were buried long before. So they do feel like there was real value in what Deshaun did over his final 5 games last year. But it was over, and there were some flaws in the roster, and then there was certainly the overlying thing where you were bringing this guy in and nobody knew what to expect, including the guy calling the plays and the guy getting the snap every play, because it was just brand new.
What's the overall sentiment with Deshaun Watson? I'm not talking about the talent on the field, but in terms of just in the community with Deshaun Watson coming there after what transpired in Houston at the end.
I think it's mixed feelings on who you talk to. I think slowly but surely the Browns have put him more out in the community, have made him more available to the media. He's very active on social media and doing that. It's awkward, and it's going to be awkward. There were times last year when, he wasn't allowed in the building. He was looking for some place in Cleveland to work out, And I think if you are strongly one way or the other, especially in the social media age, you're going to take your stance or whatever. But he has been available to the full offseason. He's He's down to 2 lawsuits. Everything else has been settled. There's nothing else NFL-wise, contract-wise, whatever. I mean, he had all of these months to bond with his teammates, to bond with his head coach and play caller, and to focus on football and trying to win that game. The second week of September, which they should win, frankly, and see where it goes from there. The distractions exist. What he did and how he's viewed is going to follow him, but it is completely different from last year, just in him being available and being able to focus on the Browns.
Zach, just looking at the defensive side of the ball, obviously Myles Garrett, we know the talent he is. He's the betting favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. But replacing Jadeveon Clowney with Zadarius Smith on the other edge, some other pickups in the secondary, including Juan Thornhill and Rodney McLeod as well. It really does feel like, even though the talent was there, this defense is set up to be a lot better than it was a year ago, especially with those additions. And, of course, the most important one, now with Jim Schwartz coordinating that defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more than fair to say Jim Schwartz is the most important addition. And obviously, Zadarius Smith is a proven player, has done it for a long time and can line up in various roles, right? It's about getting the most out of Myles. It's about keeping Myles engaged, healthy, consistent. I'm stunned that he would be the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, this guy has so much talent, it's hard to put real expectations on him. But he has not finished seasons. He has, there's always been something, right? Going back to the helmet swinging incident last year, he was taking on the coordinator publicly after almost every game. He missed the game because of the car accident. All of that stuff, it's kind of followed him. So, yeah, if you look at the Browns and think that they're going to score a bunch and Myles is going to be let loose, if anybody could get 20, 22 sacks, he has the talent to. But there's nothing in his track record that says he's going to finish his season, or in the Browns' track record that says they're going to be an 11-win team that allows him to be Defensive Player of the Year. And this is a team that only, and this doesn't matter because today you play your way into it, but there's only a couple primetime games on the schedule. Like, the glitz and the glamour is with Patrick Mahomes and with Trevor Lawrence, right? And the AFC East, which is obviously competitive, so is the AFC North, but there's more glamour there. I'm stunned that you say he's the favorite.
Yeah, to me, you know what? You're right on that, just simply because his inability to stay on the field completely for an entire season. Zach, we got about a minute remaining here. Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, they'll be the second and third receivers with Amari Cooper. How do you like this receiving core and throwing in David Njoku, the tight end, there as well?
Yeah, I think it is much better. I think Elijah Moore will have every opportunity to be the number 2 receiver. He will play inside. He will play outside. He will line up in the backfield. And he's not, Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be the outside receiver on the right. But they'll move Cooper around a little bit. They'll move Elijah Moore around a lot, and they'll dump it to Njoku. They think he's a pretty rare guy, and they keep investing in him, and the production has never been consistent. But he is big. He is fast. And they feel like he and Elijah Moore, in different ways, have the athleticism and the skill set to keep plays alive, to improvise with Watson. They don't feel like they had that last year, both in terms of the timing and in the guys when he did that. But they think Elijah Moore can do that, can break off the route, and they think Njoku can turn a lot of simple ones into big plays.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.